Hi, you might be wondering why I'm standing outside what appears to be a aircraft hangar, given that the content on my channel to date has all been about armoured vehicles. And that's because I'm here in Werribee in the western suburbs of Melbourne to take a look at a project which is going on at the moment to restore a B-24 Liberator, which was in the service of the Royal Australian Air Force, back to its original specification and bring it up to a level of repair where it's suitable for static display. It's a project that's been going on for a number of years, and the planes here in this hangar, which is now rapidly being surrounded by housing developments. It might be a bit strange to think here in southern Australia why this might be getting done, but this part of Melbourne, the western suburbs, has a strong history in Australian aviation, and particularly Australian Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force aviation. So some of the first flights, or the first powered flights in Australia, were in Altona, which is not far from this location and close to where I live. And also out this way there was two large Royal Australian Air Force bases. The first base was at Point Cook, to the south of here, about 15 kilometres, and a second base at Laverton, just to the east of this location. So a lot of history here for the Royal Australian Air Force, and I'm interested to go inside and take a look at this restoration project that's going on a Royal Australian Air Force Liberator aircraft. Okay, so as I mentioned outside, I'm here in Werribee at a World War II vintage aircraft hangar, which is now housing a B-24 Liberator, which is being restored by a group here to bring it back to display specification. So this is the aircraft as far as it has been restored. It's got the wings on it for the most part, and it's got the fuselage largely complete. There's no tailplane on it because the hangar's a little bit too small, but there's a larger hangar down the road there where they will be putting the aircraft in at some point in the future. I've spent the last couple of hours having an amazing chat with the docents down here and the people who are doing the restoration. There's some excellent displays over in this area here. You can see they've got multiple versions of the turret. So here is the nose turret out, and you can see all the mechanisms and gears. Here is the tail turret, also out of position and inspectable. They've got a mock-up here, or I shouldn't say a mock-up, but a complete set of pilot and co-pilot controls, which is just phenomenal. Showing the engine thrust controls, the rudder controls. Here's the consolidated logo on the steering yoke. You can see it's got Ford and Vultee on there as well. All the instrumentation for the various engines. So it's a really amazing collection. They've also got a number of the engines which are out and about, uninstalled, and you can see how they work. This is a phenomenal display which I was taken through, which is a fully wired up and functional Norden bomb sight. So here is the bomb sight itself. It's wired up to detect a target, which they put on this conveyor belt, and when the target is reached, the bombs are automatically released through the control boxes over here. And quite an amazing display, quite an amazing demonstration to see everything rigged up here and showing how the Norden bomb sight worked. Amazing technology for the time, and I've never seen anything like this. So also got a number of radar setups here. So this is a look down radar here, which is used for detecting shipping, and also this is a countermeasure receiver radar looking at detecting radar stations that might be searching for the aircraft. So quite phenomenal ancillaries here, in addition to the B-24 itself, which is over here. So I'll try and get a decent view of the aircraft and talk a little bit about the B-24 for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. It's a bit hard to get enough of it in the shot because you can't sort of step away and try and move into this little workshop area past some of their lathes and stuff and try and get a shot here. That's not too bad. So so this memorial has been going for a few years now as they try and build up this aircraft, and it's to pay homage to the B-24, which was the first long-range bomber that was operated by the Royal Australian Air Force. The concept of this bomber kicked off in 1938 when Consolidated Aircraft was approached by the US Army Air Corps to produce the B-17 Flying Fortress. Consolidated had this airframe in mind and had produced prototypes for non-bomber versions, and so said to the US Army Air Force that they, rather than build the B-17, they would like to put together their own long-range bomber, which they promised the Air Force would have a longer range, which have a higher bomb capacity and a higher flying speed. That sounded good to the US Army Air Force, and that kicked off the development of the B-24 Liberator. So the B-24 Liberator was first tested in December 1939. That was its maiden flight, and it delivered on that promise of doing those three things: longer range, higher speed, and higher payload. And all of that is enabled by the type of wing design that this aircraft has. So this is a so-called Davis wing, which is high-mounted or shoulder-mounted in the way that Consolidated was used to as per their PBY patrol craft and the other naval aircraft that they had designed. And that high wing with its highly efficient airfoil was able to deliver that outcome, and was longer range and higher payload than the B-17. It suffered some drawbacks compared to the B-17. It didn't perform well at low speeds, the wing, a lot of difficult to control. It also didn't have the structural rigidity with the B-17 with its low wing that provided reinforcement to the bottom of the fuselage. And it also didn't have as high operating ceiling and cruising ceiling as the B-17. It typically cruised at around 25,000 feet. The B-24 was powered by 4 Pratt & Whitney twin Wasp engines, the so-called R1830 engines, and this particular variant was fitted with the R1830-65 variant. Each engine produced around 1,200 horsepower, or about 900 kilowatts. The bomb bay features tambour or roller doors that roll up the fuselage, kind of like a garage door do, rather than doors that open outwards, and that meant that without having the outward opening doors, it had better aerodynamics over the target areas when the doors were open. But because it was so low slung, and this version's actually a little higher than the real aircraft, just to ease getting in and out, so it is quite low slung, and so if those doors had have opened outward, there would be no way to load bombs into it. Crew number varied depending on the type of fit out for a particular mission, but 11 was pretty typical. That'd be 2 pilots, a navigator, bombardier, radio operator, and a number of gunners in the front turret, the dorsal turret, the belly turret, which isn't fitted to this one but is on static display. I'll show it later. The rear turret, and also in the waist of the aircraft. Famously, it was one of the most extensively produced bombers of World War II, and the most extensively produced heavy bomber for sure. Around 18,500 were built. Initially, it was just built by Consolidated Aircraft in San Diego, but famously, the Ford Motor Company, as part of their wartime production, established a manufacturing facility at Willow Run in Michigan and produced these aircraft on a production line. So normally when you see aircraft production of the time, and even today, what you have is an airframe or a fuselage and workers swarming all over it as they try to complete it. Henry Ford had the idea and wanted to use Ford Motor Company's knowledge with production line manufacturing to make these on a line. And so they built a greenfield site from scratch in Willow Run with a 1 mile long production line. And they built these aircraft on the line. And as with all sorts of production line manufacturing techniques, you don't make changes, you keep everything the same, and you just run it as fast as you can. And at peak production, they were producing around 650 aircraft a month. And that's 1 every hour, every day, and they were running 2 shifts, 2 9-hour shifts. That's 18 a day, about 650 a month. 650 a month is over 50 12-plane squadrons a month. 50 12-plane squadrons were being produced by that one factory every month at Willow Run. Phenomenal achievement. And so that led to this, along with the production being done at the consolidated plant in San Diego and a couple of other plants that were putting together knockdown kits, made this one of the most produced, or the most produced bomber of World War II. So phenomenal when you look at it from that point of view. I was fortunate enough to visit the Willow Run facility in Michigan when I lived there at the back end of last century, and it is an impressive piece of manufacturing history. The fact that they're able to produce these aircraft here in such numbers. A few notes on, just wait for the motorcycle to drive by. A few notes on some of the production variants. So the D variant, B-24D, which was built from 1940 to 1942. That was one of the initial high volume variants that was built, that had a belly turret added to it that was produced by Bendix, and later they moved to the Sperry ball turret that was also fitted in the B-17s. That variant, the D, also mounted cheek mounted 50 caliber weapons. So you can see this version's got a turret at the front, but earlier versions had a greenhouse at the front where the Bombardier and Navigator were, and 50 caliber machine guns were mounted to the side of that greenhouse initially before they switched to the turret. And about 2,700 of the D variant were built. Another one was the B-24H. That's the first time the front of the plane received a front turret, in that case an MSNA-15 front turret, which improved the head-on defense of the aircraft rather than the cheek guns. It also had improved glazing for the rear turret. And at this point on the H variant, that's when the waist gunner positions received plexiglass covers rather than sort of metal doors that opened up. So I'll just go back and take a look at those waist gunner positions. These ones are the, as it was termed, the luxury versions that have the plexiglass covers for the waist guns. Another important variant was the J variant. That moved over to a different nose turret, and that was the first one that was built at 5 different plants and built in large numbers. The final production versions were the L and M variants, and they were versions which had undergone a large weight reduction program to try and improve the range and top speed of the aircraft late in their production life. And so this example, which we see here, started life as an M. It had a radar mounted to it later, which upped it to an R variant. And about 4,300 of the L and M variants were produced, and by that stage they'd rationalised production locations down to the consolidated plant in San Diego and Willow Run only. Some basic information about the aircraft in terms of specifications. So empty weight about 4.4 tonnes, fully laden 28,000 tonnes, so almost double once you add the fuel, the bombs, the ammunition, the crew and all the rest of it. So was capable of carrying quite large payloads. Wingspan is 33.5 metres, length is 20.7 metres once the tailplane's on. Bomb loadout was about 3,600 kilos. Armament up to 10 Browning 50 calibers, M2 Brownings. Maximum speed about 466 kilometers per hour. Cruising speed about 346. Operational ceiling 28,000 feet, but cruising ceiling was more like 25,000, and typically operated at lower altitude than the B-17s when it was on bombing runs in Europe. And operational range about 3,400 kilometers, or close to 5,000 on auxiliary tanks.